The 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 100 with Greg Rose of TPI.
And so what I was trying to do is point out how so many players are still playing today and are so much more competitive because of fitness, and that fitness isn't this evil thing just because you don't understand it.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzero.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 100 of the 18 Strong Podcast. I can't believe it's already here. It seems like it's been kind of a flash in the pan the last almost 2 years since we started the podcast, started the website, and I can't say thank you enough to all of you out there that are listening. I know many of you have listened to all 100 episodes, which kind of blows my mind, but the feedback and the kind words that you guys have sent me on email and everything has been incredible, and that's what keeps us going here at 18 Strong. And so it's been kind of a crazy journey since we started 18 Strong, and there have been so many amazing guests, relationships, friendships that we've created through the people that we have on the podcast, and it's gone and exceeded my expectations of what I personally have gotten out of this. And that's not the intention of the podcast, but I've received so many great benefits and so many cool experiences, and like I said, friendships that have really been fostered simply by the fact that on a weekly basis I get to talk to so many great individuals in the world of golf. And not just that I get to talk to them, but also get to talk to you, the people that are listening to the show, asking questions. And so it's really been cool to hear, what it is that you're struggling with or what it is that you need and what kind of information you want to hear. And, hopefully we're providing that for you, and we're going to be able to provide that in the future as we go. Again, over the past 2 years, so many different things have happened. We've put out the book, The Golfer's Guide to a Bogey-Proof Workout. We've got hundreds, maybe thousands of golfers around the world. I like to call them bogey-proof golfers that are out there supporting and sporting the brand of 18 Strong across the world. We've been downloaded in over 100 different countries, which to this day still boggles my mind. So just want to say a huge thank you to all of you again, and a big thanks to the supporters of the show. We've got three main companies that have really backed us and supported us throughout the past 2 years, and those are Super Speed Golf, Orange Whip, and the guys over at Rad Roller. And all of these products, if you haven't gotten your hands on any of these, the Super Speed Golf clubs, the Orange Whip trainer, or any of the Rad Roller products for your soft tissue needs, by all means, go check these guys out. Every one of them will give you a discount if you use the code 18Strong, but they have just been incredibly supportive of what we're doing here. Their products are amazing. I use them literally on an everyday basis with both myself and with my clients. So just want to say thanks to those guys. Now, let's jump into the episode, which I know there are a lot of people listening to this episode because they want to hear what Greg Rose, Dr. Greg Rose, the founder of TPI, has to say about the backlash in the world of golf around strength training. Should golfers be training the way that they are? Should guys like Rory be squatting 260 pounds or deadlifting 300 pounds or whatever it is that he posted in his picture? And I think it's very interesting that there's so much in the media about what's going on with these golfers, the way that they're training, how what their bodies are doing, what's happening. Tiger Woods, did his training affect his golf? Is that what ruined his back? As Dr. Rose puts it, nobody knows. Nobody knows. So why don't we ask somebody who has actually worked with some of these players and dealt with these guys and figured out what's going on with their body, what do we need to do, and consulted with their team of professionals and individuals that are leading these guys in these different directions. And so I thought that it was very timely that TPI put out a video with Dr. Rose talking about Rory's swing, and I thought this would be a perfect episode. Obviously, I've been wanting to get Dr. Rose on the show for a long time, but this is a perfect segue into really bringing this topic to the forefront. Why is it such an issue? It's not an issue in baseball. It's not an issue in basketball, soccer, all these other sports where guys are training very hard. But for some reason, golf, it's still a little bit, behind the times, in my personal opinion. So this episode, we've got Dr. Rose telling us everything that you want to know about, kind of the questions that he's gotten around it, the reasons why some of these different professional golfers are training the way that they're training. And then we dive into some other topics like, when you are working on something in your swing or working on changing something in your body, how do you relearn or how do you learn a new motor pattern? And what do you do with that? Why are there times when you slip back and fall into the old habits? And sometimes you don't even have to think about it and you move and you swing exactly the way that you want to. And then we're going to dive into the World Golf Fitness Summit, which is coming up in October of 2016 here, which is basically a collaboration of all the biggest names in the world of golf and fitness, but also, as you'll hear this year, some of the biggest names in other sports coming together to talk about the athletes, the body, and how we can best serve the golfer and improve their performance on the course. So thank you again for joining us on the 100th episode of the 18 Strong podcast. And let me introduce to you Dr. Greg Rose. Dr. Greg Rose, thank you so much for coming on the 18 Strong podcast today.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I wanted to do something very special. I don't know if you know this. This is the 100th episode of the 18 Strong podcast. And
congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I was trying to figure out what could we do and how would it work out to get you on the show. We've had so many other TPI certified instructors. We've had Dave Phillips on. We've had Jason Glass, Lance Gill, everybody pretty much. So
those are all the pretenders. This is the real deal.
Exactly.
Now.
Exactly. We got the man. No, so it's just I know you're a very busy guy, and it's cool to be able to figure out how to make this work. So thank you again for coming on. But
my pleasure.
Something that I haven't heard much about is who was Greg Rose before TPI?
He didn't exist. There was no Greg.
No, that just
it just appeared.
The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, actually, just my background is I always say you never know what you want to be when you grow up. My undergraduate was civil engineering from the University of Maryland. So I used to be a structural engineer. I used to build houses and roadways and bridges. And then, long story, decided to get into medicine. I actually got my pre-med as a minor at the University of Maryland before I graduated. Decided to go to chiropractic school. I went to chiropractic school in Palmer College in Davenport, Iowa. And basically, before I left Maryland, I became a golf fanatic. I worked at the golf course at the University of Maryland. And when I graduated chiropractic school, I was always one of those people who believed, that as long as you love what you did, it didn't matter how much money you made, and you'd be happy. So I was like, I love doing golf, so I'm going to open up a golf chiropractic office. And everybody told me I was crazy, and I was like, I can always go be a regular chiropractor. I'm going to go for it. And I opened up a chiropractic practice right outside of Washington, D.C. in Rockville, Maryland, called Advantage Golf. And 5 years later, I had almost 3,000 golfers that were patients.
Wow. And
worked with tons of players. And Dave Phillips was in Baltimore, Maryland, not too far, about 45 minutes away. And around, it was 2000, Dave and I met, and he started sending me some of his clients. And in 2002 is when we really started consulting with Titleist. And 2003 is when we built TPI. We both moved out to San Diego, and the rest is history.
Man, and so much has happened since then. I mean, so many
really
different
has.
Coaches, players, fitness professionals, medical professionals have been inspired by you guys. So first, I just want to kind of thank you for all the work that you guys have done. I know it's been a long road, and there is a lot of time and effort and travel that goes into it. I know you're home right now. You said you're just on the road doing some seminars.
Yeah, thanks for the kind words. That it's always great to be home. We're on the road probably 40 weeks a year, but like I said, it's what we love to do. So I don't really consider it work. It's fun. We get to meet some great people like yourself. We get to go around the world, see places, and it's just so much fun.
And where's home for you? Out in California, I assume?
San Diego, right in San Diego, California.
And kids, wife, what's the story on Greg Rose, the person?
I've got a beautiful wife and a beautiful daughter, 14-year-old daughter who's 14 going on 24, if you know what I mean.
I absolutely know that.
Yeah. And they get, fortunately, a lot of times they get to travel the world with me. So sometimes I think they see more of the world than I do, because I see a lot of convention centers and they get to see all the cool places.
Yeah.
But couldn't be happier.
and for all the coaches, instructors, everybody that's kind of seen you on stage, learned a lot from you, and is in the TPI system, what's one or two things that we don't know about you, Greg Rose?
Well, the one thing I always say most people don't know is that I am a fanatic gardener. That is that's my hobby. If I took you on a tour of my house, any of the nutrition people out there would be very impressed. I literally grow 70% of the food I eat.
Wow.
And when I say I'm a fanatic gardener, I'm a fanatic gardener. So I basically, I've got my own little orchard, vegetable garden, and it's something that's where I kind of do that's where I do my thinking, right? So I go out there every day, and so any new stuff you see us coming up with usually was developed in the garden. That's something people don't know.
I love it. Actually cultivated in the garden.
That's it, literally.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. So recently, well, I shouldn't say recently because this has kind of been a debate for the past several years and probably even longer for you since you've been in the trenches so long with TPI. But there's a lot of talk about, the different workout routines that we're seeing some of the guys on tour do, Rory in particular. And you just put out a great video of you in the lab talking about, the whole backlash of lifting heavy weights. Yeah. Can you kind of summarize, and I'll put the video in the show notes too, but summarize a little bit of what you talked about in that video regarding strength training for golfers? Yeah.
So, I think obviously people are scared of things they don't understand. Let's put it that way. And announcers are not any different, right? If you don't really understand something, then it's easy to blame that if there's problems. Everybody started blaming Tiger Woods, his golf swing for his injuries, but they don't really know what's happening, right? And it's the same thing with Rory. If Rory's struggling, it couldn't be the fact that he might be changing something swing-wise or equipment-wise. It must be a workout because we don't understand that. And so what I was trying to do is point out how so many players are still playing today and are so much more competitive because of fitness. And that fitness isn't this evil thing just because you don't understand it. And one of the things that I think was really important is that, of course, you can do stupid things in the gym, right? You can do stupid things on the golf course, stupid things in technique. So anything can hurt you, right? But if you do it properly and you have a very, structured program that has been laid out by somebody who knows what they're doing, like a TPI certified professional, it could be one of the secret weapons to your success. And I mentioned Rory because Rory is the perfect example of a kid who had incredible talent, who has incredible talent, and was very small frame. And there are countless sports where you have athletes with very small frames that create incredible speed and force. And I mentioned this formula, force equals mass times acceleration, that literally, if you're going to create force, you don't need to have a lot of mass. You just need to have a lot of acceleration. Or you can have a lot of mass and you don't need as much acceleration and you can create force. And I feel many of us in the coaching world, from baseball to soccer to tennis, a lot of the people that I pal around with, we've always made the observation that a lot of the bigger guys tend to last longer. They don't break down as much. Now they create incredible force, but we don't feel like they have to accelerate as much because they have more mass. Whereas, again, you can still create the same amount of force if you're small. If you're a Jamie Sedlowski, a two-time world long drive player who's about the size of me, but if you look at his acceleration rates, they're incredible. They're insane. So you can do it. The question is how long can you sustain that? And we see a lot of these smaller people who create incredible power to break down a lot. And so one of the things that we always recommend is if we can put a little more mass on you. People will argue that it only matters about the club head. That's just a complete misunderstanding of what we're saying, is that somebody needs to deliver the force or create the force that's delivered to the golf club. And if you have more ability to control your accelerations, we feel that your longevity is increased. So if you take a kid like Rory, who's really small when he's 15, 18, 19, especially someone who is complaining of lower back problems when they're young, like Rory was, putting some mass on him in a smart way, not like go eat some junk food and get fatter. That's not what we're talking about. Like some muscle mass on there and get leaner. It can do literally only one thing, and that is perpetuate his career preventative injury free. Now, again, if your thought is, I don't know anything about strength training, and when I think of strength training, I think of Olympic lifting 1,000 pounds and people blowing out their discs, it scares you. You say, oh, that's going to hurt you. They just don't. That's just people who are ignorant and don't know how to do safe training. So again, there are countless examples of people who've done stupid stuff in the gym, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about smart training and how it can extend your career. I mean, there are tons of players playing on the Champions Tour right now that wouldn't be playing without fitness regimens. I mean, look at the Champions Tour now. I mean, there's a huge advantage when you're 50 of being healthy. There are millions of dollars being made every year, and it just shows that there's not many sports that you can keep making multi-million-dollar purses when you're 50. That's a pretty cool advantage of golf and staying fit.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Champions Tour, it seems like over the past several years, has really gained so much more popularity. There's so much more advantage for these guys that are much more fit, and just the ability that is out there. Those purses are out there for these guys, so it gives them that much more motivation.
Yeah.
I think one question that some of the analysts and people might ask is, okay, so we understand you need a fitness regimen, you need to keep these guys safer. When is enough? Which is, I think, what some of these guys are asking about Rory. The big weights that you see him lifting and things like that.
Yeah. I always, first of all, like I said, I always ask, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but it's kind of like some of the analysts. I'm like, why are you an analyst? Why are you not still playing? A lot of times it's going to come down to fitness. I hate to say that, or there's been some health issues. So we're going, hey, we all agree, health is the number one important thing. If you're injured, it doesn't matter what kind of player you are, you can't play, right? So to me, it's your goal in fitness is to be able to optimize what you're doing, to take advantage of your weapons, right? Everybody's got different weapons. If putting is your weapon, you'd want to make sure that your fitness is targeted towards your weapon. And I think that to me, it's not about how much weight you can lift. It's maximizing power, right? So it's how fast you can lift some of these weights. And flexibility is a huge piece of our workouts. I hear people saying you shouldn't work out, but you look at the flexibility that our tour players have. It's incredible. And how can you develop that if you don't focus some attention on that? I mean, I think that's as ridiculous as saying you shouldn't work out as ridiculous as saying you shouldn't practice putting. I mean, it's equally important. I mean, just take away someone's flexibility and let me see you go play golf. It's not going to happen. So when you say what's too much, you should feel like when you work out, it's improving your performance, right? If you feel like every time I work out, I'm sore or I feel worse, you're doing something wrong. That's just not normal. Most people, when they do a proper workout program, they see the advantage right away on the golf course. They feel better the next day. It wakes them up. It energizes them. If you feel anything different, I would get a second opinion on what you're doing.
Right. Do you see correlations to, you mentioned that people are often scared of what they don't know about or what they don't understand. To me, I kind of see a correlation to, baseball pitchers, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, basketball players. Before they started working out, it was kind of like, it was almost taboo in some of those sports as well. And now you would never think that a baseball pitcher wouldn't have a solid workout regimen.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in certain sports like soccer, right, or lacrosse, conditioning is just part of the game, right? I mean, you're running so much and people are huffing and puffing, and you can see it on your athlete. You can see that if you're a coach, the person isn't fit enough, right? The problem in golf is looks are very misleading. You'll look at players and you'll be like, that player's not fit. I can tell, and he's competing really well. Or, hey, that person looks like he's fit, but he's not playing very well, so they don't see the correlation. I used to use the analogy of John Daly. John Daly's cracked me up. He's got Trim Spa on one side and he's got Dunkin' Donuts on the other side. So, but people would look at John and they'd be like, hey, he's not an athlete. And I would just, flip that around and I go, really? I go, I have to ask you a couple of questions. Do you think you're as flexible as John Daly? I don't know many people as flexible as John Daly. I go, do you think you're as powerful as John Daly? Again, I don't know as many people as powerful as John Daly. What you think of appearance-wise of fitness might be very different than what I think of appearance-wise of fitness. And I just say, don't judge a book by its cover. Let's go through and assess and see if you have the criteria that we would consider would be advantageous for golf. And that's where, the basis of our entire screening process comes from. Our screening isn't look at them. right? looks
Right.
don't matter. It's let's test the qualities that we know would be advantageous if you have those, and if you don't have those, wouldn't it make sense that maybe we try and build some of those?
Right. Yeah, I go back to, I had the fortune to speak with Shane Lawler and Robbie Cannon, both about, Shane Lowry, who oftentimes gets that comment. Oh, Shane obviously doesn't put any time in the gym and this and that. And I kind of asked Shane Lawler what he thought of that question. He couldn't say those words on the air. But, it kind of goes back to that force equals mass times acceleration thing, too, where Shane has that larger frame, that larger base. So even though, and I asked Shane Lawler about this, when people say something about him needing to lose weight or things like that, it's like, wait, that's part of that is some of his strength. I mean, his ability to create that or have that mass to create that force.
Yeah, honestly, I get really nervous when, I think it's really important. A lot of players might go and ditch their coach and say, I'm going to go focus on fitness for 6 months, right? And because they think I'm overweight, I need to get back in shape. I think it's critically important anytime you go into a fitness program, we talk about building teams around the players, is that you have somebody monitoring your technique as well as at the same time you're doing your fitness. Because like you're saying, if I've got this big guy with this engine that works really well, sometimes taking that engine and putting it, it's like you have an engine for a semi, for a truck, right? Who says that engine's going to work great on a motorcycle, right? Things can change, right? So not saying that a motorcycle is not bad, but let's just make sure that we make modifications to the engine as well as we go. So that's why I think it's really important. Anytime you get on a serious fitness program to change the way you look, a coach needs to be involved. We're always saying that you need to do this in coordination with a coach so that, the good news, I always like to bring this point too, is that motor patterns are developed around physical limitations. So for example, like let's say your right hip doesn't work, okay, it doesn't rotate. Well, instead of coiling in your right hip, you might move lateral and sway instead, right? Because it's just that I can't rotate, so I'm going to create another way. As soon as I start going lateral, I create a motor pattern. And it's just, I learned how to play golf with this little sway. A lot of great players have learned to play with the sway. Vijay Singh was number one in the world with a little sway. Ernie Els had a little sway. So if you have this hip mobility problem and you decide to go to the gym and you go, hey, I got to go work on this, right? And a trainer or coach tells you to work on it. When you go into the gym and let's say we loosen up your hip and now your hip works, does it mean you're not going to sway in your golf swing now? Well, honestly, it's a coin toss, right? Some people magically all of a sudden start coiling into their hip and it changes the way they swing. Most people, once you've built a motor pattern, the motor pattern doesn't go away. You just have the ability to change the motor pattern now. So they just keep swaying until a coach, somebody goes in there and says, let's try a different way, and you start learning a new pattern. So in a way, that's sometimes a good thing so that you can go work out and it doesn't modify what you do when you play. But you also have to be conscious that sometimes magically sometimes these things can change and someone needs to be monitoring that. That's why I feel like it's really important that you work on both aspects whenever you're going to make modifications. You have coaching and training going on simultaneous, and then we take advantage of all the positives.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point because we develop these patterns that it's just like driving a car and everything. I mean, you start to do this stuff automatically. So even if you change some of the mobility, but it's like it's potential. It's potential for improvement.
It's potential. It's like you say, if you're driving a car and you have a 4-speed, right? Let's say you're driving a bike and you have a 4-speed and you just used to go into 4-speed. Just because the mechanic put a 5th speed in there doesn't mean you're going to click that button. But you can now if you want.
And then let's say you do fix some. Say let's go with the hip. So you fix that. You have a lateral slide now. How do we go about kind of changing that motor pattern? What are some of the best ways that you found to start ingraining that new movement?
Well, there's a lot of science here in motor control and motor learning. But one of the things I think is important for everybody to understand is that once I say motor programs are like books on a shelf in your brain, right? So once you build a motor pattern, there's a book on the shelf in your brain. No matter what you do, you cannot get rid of that book on that shelf. It will always be there. That's why you work with players and you're like, I can't believe they did that under pressure. I thought that was gone. It's never gone. Okay, it's always there. But what you can do is you can write new books, right? And so we can put a new book next to the old book. And then we got to convince the brain, grab the new book, don't grab the old book. And I think that's really important that you understand that we're not modifying a book you have. We're creating new books. Okay, there's a big difference. People think I'm going to change this. So I think when you attack a motor pattern, instead of saying, hey, I don't like the way you load your right hip, you slide lateral, I want to modify it like this. Instead, if you go at it going, okay, I'm going to teach you a new way to load your hip. Not modifying. It's a new book, right? Sometimes we get better success just with that terminology, first of all. And then I think it's really important to create a new motor pattern. The thing that, in my experience, what has worked the best is it's not about form. It's not like I want to be on the video camera and it needs to look like this. Form doesn't get you to writing a book faster. Feel does. So they have to be able to feel what coiling into the hip feels like versus swaying into the hip, right? So I call it good cop, bad cop. It's kind of like, hey, show me what it feels like to do a sway, and then let me show you what coil looks like, and now you tell me what that feels like. And as long as you can tell the difference in feel, you can start to write a new book. That's really important.
I like that thought process. And then being able to show them, okay, this is what you're doing now, this is what we're moving towards, and kind of going back and forth and being able to differentiate.
It's also imperative that you have that feel difference so you can air detect. So when you're playing, if you all of a sudden you hit a bad shot, you can go, I felt the old book, not the new book there. And that's the only way you can do this. Because as a coach, our job is to make our players not need us, right? If the player needs the coach to go, oh, you did it wrong that time, they're not learning anything.
Right.
So they need to be able to air detect themselves, and feel's the best way to do that.
This kind of branches into a subject that I saw you speak about at the World Golf Fitness Summit in 2014, which was the whole cycle of pain and chronic pain, and kind of a similar thing as far as movement patterns. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, just the effects of chronic pain and the whole movement process?
Well, that's a loaded topic right there. But so obviously there are ways there are reasons that the body will change motor patterns, right? We've been talking about limitation, right? So if you have a mobility problem in your hip, you'll learn to do something different. Well, the greatest motivator to create a new pattern is pain, right? So if there's pain, your body is a self-protecting mechanism, right? It's going to try and avoid pain at all costs. So if you're a soccer player and you're running down the field and your left knee starts to have pain, most soccer players aren't going to look at their coach and go, hey, coach, take me out, right? They're just going to modify the way they move. They're going to alter their motor control so that it doesn't hurt the left knee. Let's say the left knee's hurting. They'll put more weight on the right leg, and they'll just run with the right leg. Now, the problem is number one, you're creating a new book, probably something you don't want to. And number two is now there's all these abnormal forces on your right leg, so you're now vulnerable to maybe an injury on the right leg. And this happens every day. That's an extreme example, but people wake up with aches and pains and different little things, and they go play golf, and they don't even realize that because of those aches and pains, they're writing books like every day, new books. And so the whole world with pain, pain is the greatest motivator to alter motor control, which is why, that's a primary focus of everything we do is when you're pain-free, number one, we can get into positions that you want to do. But number two is we can focus on mastering the books we have and not having to write new ones.
Right. So with, let's say, the weekend golfer, what are some of the things that you see the recreational weekend golfer, some of the biggest issues or things that they could change immediately that you think would have some of the biggest effects on them? Okay.
Well, if we're sticking with pain for a second, I think the first thing you have to do with pain is you have to figure out why. Right, you got to figure out why you have pain, and in my mind, pain can be due to multiple things. Obviously, it could be due to some type of tear in a tissue, right? So if you've got a tear in tissue, that could be a problem. That's something a medical professional would have to get involved. But one of the things I like to do is if you have pain doing something, like let's say you have pain, let's say bending forward to tee up your ball. Say it hurts your lower back. Okay, anytime you hinge from your hip, it hurts. One of the things you could do just at home, just to see potentially what's causing this, is you can try that same movement in a different position. So in other words, if standing on your feet, bending forward and touching your toes hurts, first thing I might do is lay down on my back and just try lifting my legs up and try and touch my toes. So in other words, I'm trying to touch my toes on my back versus trying to touch my toes standing. If a different position is pain-free, like if you sit on your butt and try and touch your toes, it doesn't hurt. But when you stand and try and touch your toes, it hurts. That tells us a lot. Because if a position makes a difference and the movement doesn't hurt now, you probably don't have a tear in a tissue. You probably don't have a mobility problem. Mobility problems are very consistent. They don't change. You probably have some type of motor control problem. You have a stability motor control. So in other words, when you're standing, the way you try and touch your toes is wrong, and the way you're doing it is aggravating something, right? But actually, if you didn't have to control your body and your posture and your stability, and you just didn't lay on your back, it doesn't hurt, that's a big deal. To me, that is something that exercise and fitness could fix immediately. So this is something where you'd want a professional, a fitness professional or exercise professional. This isn't where I don't need to go to the doctor. I don't need surgery, right? I need someone to change the way I move, to change the way I control my body. And that can be fixed literally in 5 minutes, right? Just by changing my motor control and which book I'm picking. So that's something that people can do at home, is they can take the snapshot of their body parts that hurt, and then try those same movements in different positions. Like even swing a golf club on your back, like lay on your back and take your arms if your shoulders hurt and go, does your shoulder hurt when you lay on your back? You're going to be shocked at how many people it doesn't hurt anymore. That tells me a ton. Okay, so that would be a personal tip that you can do at home, is almost self-diagnose, right? It's for pain. The second advice I always give to people is, I hate to say this because we're on a fitness podcast here, but not everybody loves working out, right?
Yep,
okay,
absolutely.
And time is money, right? So, people are like, I got to go to the gym for an hour or 2 hours. I tell everybody, I go, listen, most people, we can get benefit from fitness in 5 minutes. I mean, if I know what's wrong with you, I can tell you probably a couple things to do every day that might take 5 minutes or less that could change your life, right? So I'm like, first of all, it doesn't have to be an hour. So the number one advice I give to people is, if you actually would go figure out what's wrong with you, we don't have to hit everything. We could be a sniper now. We don't have to throw grenades. We can just pick off the parts that are important. And this is why I always say, the number one thing you should do is go get screened, go get evaluated. It literally, how long does it take to do a screen? Less than 7 minutes, right? So you go through it, you get a little screen, and now once I know where my problem is, let's make that the priority. Okay, so and it's not, you don't have to do 100 exercises. You could do one that goes after your priority, and it makes a difference. And then once people start seeing, I think one of the biggest problems in fitness is people think it takes 3 months, 6 months to notice a difference. I think if you're doing the right thing, you should notice a difference today, right? So
right.
That's the big difference. So I feel like, hey, if I could prove to you that you feel better tomorrow morning, or even before you leave here, you feel better, that's going to motivate you. Once you get motivated and you feel those, or you see the difference on the golf course, then people are like, hey, I probably can do 10 minutes. I used to do 5 minutes. And the next thing you know is they're doing 30 minutes because they see the advantage. It's like hitting balls on the range. They see that, hey, that should help me. A lot of times in fitness, they don't see that because they don't know what they're doing. They're not even working on the right thing. Right. I don't feel like, I always feel like people are doing the wrong, they're not doing exercises bad. They're doing the wrong exercises, right? So it's not like, hey, your trainer's bad. I'm not sure if they're focusing on the right thing. So let's make the right diagnosis today. If you're going to change your life today, start with the diagnosis. Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. Speaking from experience, when you have a client come in or a patient come in, and you give them just that one thing that they immediately, the lights go on, something changes, and they feel better immediately, or they weren't able to touch their toes, for the past 10 years, and you show them a couple little tricks, and now they're touching their toes. I mean, it's immediate.
If you have sore throat and you go to the doctor and he gives you some medicine and your throat feels better in like 6 hours, you go back to the doctor whenever there's a problem, right? If I go to the trainer and there's something wrong and I do something that day and I leave and I'm like, I still feel the same, I'm not motivated to go back and do it again.
Absolutely.
It's no difference. Yeah.
If we could, I'd like to kind of change gears a little bit here and talk a little about the World Golf Fitness Summit, which is coming up in October. How did the whole premise of the World Golf Fitness Summit start, and when was the first one?
So back in 2004, it was myself, Dave Phillips, and Wally Uline, the CEO of Titleist. When we really started getting into this, we started talking about making a difference in the industry. We wanted to promote how important health and fitness was, show the world what the best players in the world were doing, knowing that if players would do just simple things every day, they would play longer, enjoy the game more, play more often. And we said, most industries that are well established have an annual event, right? They have an annual conference. Well, first of all, I feel like we almost started the golf fitness industry, right? So we were like, hey, let's create that annual event where it's not just TPI, it's people from all different walks of life who are interested in golf fitness, where we can share ideas. So we created this in 2006. We created the first World Golf Fitness Summit, and we decided to do it every 2 years. And it literally is, it's my favorite event times 10. Let's put it that way. You know, we do a lot of events all over the place, but the World Golf Fitness Summit, literally, it's a place where the leading minds in golf, health, and fitness come. They share their ideas. The presentations are fantastic, obviously, and we can talk about some of the ones this year. But what happens around the conference is even, as exciting, and it's just the little groups of people sharing ideas and talking, and the connections that are made is why you have these annual conferences, right? Yeah. And literally, you think about it at TPI, it's probably the largest gathering of our level 3 certifieds in the world. And we have people from over 20 countries. I'm not sure if you can just go to a conference right now and see, what are they doing for golf fitness in Japan and in Australia and in Korea and in South America and in Europe. And, here's the place where you can do that. And I also feel like it's a place where people aren't scared to share their ideas, because we're all in this together. We're all going to take this, go back and try and make golfers better, right? So that's the whole premise of the World Golf Fitness Summit. It's the industry standard event where people can share their ideas. And this year, we always have a theme, by the way. Like one year we had juniors was a theme. One was just practical application. Don't show me ideas, show me what you do, right? This year, because I feel like we have the ability to take so many ideas from other sports and bring them into golf. Like, I've learned so much from watching other experts in other sports that I've literally stolen that stuff and applied it to my golfers. We've made it the theme of the conference this year. So it's basically what we can learn from other sports to apply to our golfers. And we've literally brought in some of the people that I've learned so much from, and other people have learned so much from, that are from other sports. But I know, like Jay Dyer, who's the head strength conditioning coach for Johns Hopkins for the U.S. lacrosse. I'm sorry, lacrosse is a rotary stick sport that Jay has so much information that we could use to apply to our golfers that, and when you talk to some of these people, they're like, wait a minute, you want me to speak at a golf conference? I'm like, yes, I want you to speak at a golf conference. And they're like, but I don't do golf. I'm like, I don't want you to talk about golf. I want you to talk about lacrosse, and we can figure out what we want to steal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what's kind of exciting. Like John Kremer, who's basically the director of performance for the Yankees, is going to show you what they do for the entire minor leagues, going through from their batters and what they're looking for, like even how they scout, what characteristics they're looking for, how power is monitored and measured from a baseball world. That's what this year's conference is all about. And I don't even think a lot of people they probably haven't heard of a lot of these people, because a lot of people just have gone to golf conferences, right? They haven't gone and looked at these other ones. But these are the people that we tend to, at TPI, go outside the box and share ideas with. And I think certain people that a lot of our people have seen before, like Dr. Tom House from the baseball world.
Yep.
Tom is now called the quarterback whisperer. I mean, it's the perfect example. I mean, there's 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Tom's worked with 28 of them. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, most people in their career as a trainer might work with one starting quarterback. He's got everybody from Tom Brady to Drew Brees to all of them. And Tom will be there sharing some of the stuff that from the football world, from quarterbacks that we can transfer. And then, of course, we have all of our golf experts there as well, right? So including the next president of the PGA of America, Susie Whaley, will be there talking about all their initiatives and things that she's learned. We're really excited about this year. And then something, we'll end with this, but every year we allow our TPI certified professionals to submit talks that we pick a couple. In the past, these are people that have never really been on the big stage, but we feel have a lot to share with the world because some of the stuff they're doing. And we had hundreds of TPI certified professionals submit potential talks for the summit. And normally we pick like 3 to 5. This year we have 12. We have 12 presenters from the TPI world coming. That maybe you've had some of these on your podcast before, but people like Allie Gilbert, who's one of our level 3 strength coaches, Charlie Weingroff, who's presented for us before, who obviously they're all just fantastic experts in what they do. Ryan Gambin, we've got Dr. Ben Langdown that's from the PGA of UK. He's been in the sports science department there forever. Tyler Farrell from more of a biomechanics standpoint. Patrick Dooley, who's a coach from Ireland, who has some really cool stuff on over and underweighted type of training. Chris Finn, Neil Hausch, going through a list of other guys. And of course we have our TPI's one and only Lance Gill, who does all of our level 1s, and Mark Blackburn, another top coach, Brian Bradley from the Gosky world. We got, there's just so many great people. And we have, as always, there are a few people that are presenting that we are not listing that will be surprise guests that I think the world would be very excited to see. So I wish I could name some of those, but you got to keep a couple surprises.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
And then actually, and then just so I'll say one other plug too, just is on Tuesday night of the World Golf Fitness Summit, we actually took over the entire House of Blues. So basically the House of Blues in New Orleans, we've got a killer local Cajun style New Orleans band that's going to be there. And basically at the summit, after the summit's over, we're all going to march over the House of Blues and do it right Tuesday night.
That sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah.
I was frantically jotting down all those names. Half of those people I think have been on the show, and the other half, one of these days, will be on the show. Hopefully.
There you go. Great.
All right, Dr. Rose, just a couple last quick rapid-fire questions for you that I'd like to ask everybody.
Go.
First and foremost, are you a Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore guy?
Wow. And they're both on my top list. If I had to watch one of them again, it'd have to be Caddyshack.
All right.
Yeah, I've seen them both 1,000 times, but it'd have to be Caddyshack.
Yeah, same here. If you could walk and play 18 holes of golf with anyone in the world, past, present, future, doesn't matter if they're in the world of golf or not, who would it be and where would you play?
One person?
One person.
Wow, that's a loaded question. I'm a pretty simple guy, and the things that I like are really, really, really simple. And I would have to pick the one person that I'll say present. Past, there are definitely some family members that I would pick, but present, I don't know how to get any better than playing with your daughter. So it'd be my daughter, and honestly, we would probably, my favorite, you have to say Augusta, right? I mean, right? So
I think it's probably the number one answer on the show.
Yeah, I mean, come on, me and my daughter together. I don't know if we get any better than that.
That's a pretty special afternoon, I would think.
Yeah.
All right, as we move forward into the end of 2016, moving into 2017 eventually here, and I know that World Golf Fitness Summit is probably one of your first answers, but what would you say you're most excited about with TPI right now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the summit is something we look forward to every 2 years. In the future, what am I looking forward to in TPI? Every year things change and get better, and I'm always excited about that. To me, we're adding a few countries, and I'm always excited every time we're going to new countries. Like we're going to Thailand for the first time, we're going to Argentina for the first time. That's always exciting. Besides the summit, it's the new frontiers we haven't been to.
I love it.
There's obviously lots of new content, but I always like meeting new people too.
Sure. Any last piece of advice for the 18 Strong audience before we let you go?
I would say just listen, keep doing what you do best and do what you know is right. I think that's important. It doesn't matter if some of the media says bad things about golf and fitness. We all know, and the players know, and what's right always finishes on top, right? So you just keep doing what you're doing. I think 99% of the people are huge supporters of it. And all I can tell you is that there are players that are probably the top 10 players in the world would tell you that they probably wouldn't be top 10 in the world without fitness as one of the key components. And do what you believe in, do what you love, and you'll be one happy person.
Excellent. I have to take just a second here to say thank you, first and foremost, for everything that you guys do. The 18 Strong podcast wouldn't be around had I not gone to a level 1 TPI here in St. Louis and then, met guys like Jason Glass and gone to the World Golf Fitness Summit and met so many of the connections of people that have now been guests on the show, and I know that there's thousands and thousands of instructors and coaches and fitness professionals that all feel the same way that I do. So first, thank you for that, and then second, thank you for taking the time today. I love being able to help spread the word of TPI and the mission you guys are on, so hopefully we can help you there.
Thanks for the kind words, and congratulations on all your success, and I would love to come back. Just let me know when you want me.
Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, buddy.
Thanks again for joining us on the 100th episode of the 18 Strong podcast. If you want any more information on Dr. Rose or any of the links from this episode, just go to 18strong.com/Greg-Rose. Or again, this is episode number 100. You can find it pretty easily there and get to the show notes. If you haven't yet subscribed to the 18 Strong podcast, you can do that simply by going over to iTunes, search for 18 Strong, and just hit the little subscribe button, and you will get every single new episode as soon as they are downloaded. You can also find the Golfer's Guide to a Bogey-Proof Workout at bogeyproofworkout.com or just on the sidebar of 18strong.com. Anywhere on there, you'll find access to the book, which also includes a 4-week workout plan with videos, resources, everything tied in there, including some nutritional tips. So head on over to bogeyproofworkout.com. It's been an amazing 100 episodes so far, and we look forward to many, many more in the future. So please don't forget, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.